it, I need to hit this button. Even though there is only the four of us.
Actually, it's 11 o'clock.
Where you, it's 11, and anybody that's in San Carlos, it's 10, and I'm in Alaska, so it's 9 o'clock for me, and this is the San Carlos Computer Club. I'm Scott Stimson from International Computer Solutions, and you have dropped in on us just as we're looking at AirTags, because I fly today and just discovered that it is $30 each at the Apple Store. See, I was just looking at that. There you go, 29 bucks each. How much is the keyring case for it? Is that
I bought a Belkin one, so I don't know.
The keyring's probably $140.
I don't know. I can't remember if I saw those at Costco or not.
Good morning, Pop.
I bet they do.
Judy was just reminding me I should pick up some AirTags for my flight, since air travel's been so sporadic and I'm worried about losing my luggage between 3 flights. I completely forgotten that now that I have an iPhone, I could be using these AirTags. We're looking at them on the Apple website for $30 a tag. But I think we found them at Costco for $100 if they are.
I wonder how many tags you could put for each phone.
I think
a number of them. A number of them. Just like you. I'm sorry.
Scott, I think the key fobs are coming with that at Apple. Look at that.
The key fob is.
Or not at Apple, at Costco.
Oh, really? Because it sure doesn't need anything special. I would take a not special thing to save a couple of bucks.
Mine's just like a little round thing. In fact, I can go and find it.
AirTag.
If you can AirTag your mind, I'm always losing mine.
Put one on your daughter.
What's that?
Put one on your daughter.
Why can't I find them on the website?
See it?
No, I'm not finding it.
It's very nice with the Apple and everything.
Well, this is the case, the white. The little silver thing is the actual AirTag.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Well, it looks like they're not at Costco any longer. This item is available for pre-sale for expected shipping. Oh, this is an old article talking about it. But that price is no longer available. Apple.
So I guess you name each tag and give it a name, like purse, car, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, if you think about it, you've never probably extensively used Find My, which is an Apple app. But Find My is a whole ecosystem for tracking down devices. And so you can use Find My to find your laptop or your iPad or your iPhone or your kid's iPhone or your iPod. And it's just a whole bunch of devices can all be used with one phone, because it's not really the phone that makes it appropriate. It's the service that's being made available. It's conveniently in your phone. And it's so very convenient in your phone. Like, for example, the AirPods, the Apple wireless Bluetooth buds. You can use the Find My to track it down within feet. So you can track it down to the house, but then you can wander around the house with your phone looking for those, because they're so little to be able to find them when they've fallen under a couch or something like that. So it's the same thing for these trackers. It's all the same technology. But I don't see them sold at Costco any longer. Yeah. At least not from their website. I see the headphone and the watches. Try Apple Tag. The Pro 4 Bluetooth. Oh, that's interesting. Tile shows up.
I think you should call your Costco.
Yeah.
They also might have them at Walmart, but I don't think they're any. I think Walmart has the same price. They do have them at the Canadian site for Costco, but I didn't find them either at my store here.
You're looking online and you see it on the Canadian site.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I would suspect they're not, at the very least, not in stock here locally at Costco. That's too bad. That'd be a nice.
I would really call them and see though, because I
Yeah.
saw them. They were with the cell phone stuff, and they were in a box.
How long ago
And
was
I
that?
swear, well, I don't know, maybe a month.
So did it say they were on Costco online or in the stores?
Well,
I saw them in the store.
in
Costco online has them in Canada.
well, in a perfect world, we should be looking at Costco online and it should be saying available in store. So if we're not seeing it online and we're still calling, we're assuming that their website is not showing their inventory correctly.
Gosh, that's what I assume, because every time I look and it says it's there and I go to buy it, they don't have it. So that's what I do assume.
These are air tags, right? That's what they're called. Air tag.
Air tag.
Yeah.
Yeah. See,
I'm on Best Buy's site now. There they are in Best Buy. Oh yeah.
The Costco website does state specifically that availability in the stores is totally different from the website. Can be, I should say.
Exactly.
Oh, and I'm looking at air tags at Best Buy. And order now. They don't have them in stock at Best Buy. They have them for order to be picked up at Best Buy.
How much are they at Best Buy?
They're the $99 for 4 of them.
Oh,
yeah, a 4-pack
good.
at Best Buy. So that seems like the way to go, but
you can call them. I know that you're not
Yeah,
in that
yeah.
generation, but it's always a good idea.
all right, I'm going to take your
Call
advice
ahead.
and give them a call and see if they're available.
You're even older, you could write them a letter.
Yeah. Well, if I had that kind of time, I could just order them and have them delivered. I'm just disappointed I wasn't.
I've seen them at Walmart. I've seen them at Costco.
Oh, Walmart. Let's see.
Walmart is the same price as Apple, or they were.
Well, let's just find out what Walmart's doing.
Do you have Target there?
We do.
Yes, we have Target.
Now they'll be running around town today.
No, I don't want to run around town. Yeah, it's $30 for one at Walmart. They do have a 4-pack at Walmart, and they're out of stock.
Let your fingers do the walking.
Target. Well, you know, Alaska's really odd with this kind of stuff because the batteries become this big deal. They have to fly everything that's battery related. They can't ship it over ground, any of these lithium batteries. And so we go through waves of times when things aren't available locally. And my father and I both have had experiences trying to ship back to Amazon. We've both gotten refunds on what we consider expensive devices. A smart cup that was easily over $100 and a pair of wireless headphones that was $60. And both times Amazon, instead of giving us a fly it back to Amazon option, they just said keep it and gave us our refunds. Because the logistics and the price, I imagine, to ship that back, given regulations, is just not worth the effort of trying to get it back from us.
I guess
Did the
what
products
puzzled
actually
us
work?
was they had actually mailed it to me, the cup he's talking about. And so it never even occurred to us that we couldn't send it back. In fact, one of Scott's best buddies is the manager at UPS, and I gave him the box to mail it back. A few days later, he came back and said, we can't mail it because it's got the batteries in it. So That's when we called and they said, well, we'll come by and pick it up. Well, they never did. So then when I called and complained, they said, well, you just keep it. We'll give you a refund.
We had to
So-
make 2 different phone calls, but like the first call, of course, was to set up the refund, and they just rattled off the sticker. But what it turns out is the sticker they give you by default is to send it by ground. Well, anywhere in the United States, that's not a big deal, but because ground is such a long journey from Alaska down to the lower 48, we don't have an Amazon warehouse up here, not that I'm aware of, unless it's something new. That would change things dramatically, I think. That there's regulations about those batteries being shipped in containers that are taking long travels. And so they have to be, that's what Justin told us, is they have to be shipped over air. And so when we called them back, said, hey, we can't send these back to you unless you give us a new shipping label, after a bit of a runaround on their end, not us. We were just waiting on hold. They came back to us and said, you just need to keep them. We're giving you the refund right now. And I just had the same experience with a pair of headsets my daughter bought. It's like, no, we need to send these back. They're starting to fall apart and they're brand new. And they just gave us the refund because you can't ship it ground from here because of those lithium-ion batteries. Well, I'm looking at Target. Not available in Anchorage. Man, I bet they've got them in the Apple store for $30 a pop. Where else? I think I've exhausted all the places I could imagine being able to buy these. All the places I would think I'd be able to walk in and buy these. We hit Costco, Walmart, Target. Can't think of anywhere else. Oh, Best Buy, we tried that.
The Apple store does have a 4-pack, but I think it's online only.
Oh, I don't even see that online. Let me.
Radio Center.
Oh, you're right, and it's $99. So that's the
Right.
standard price is
Right.
$99 for a 4-pack.
But it didn't say they were in stock. It says down here you can order and pick them up on the 28th of September, which is not very helpful.
Yeah, but you could, with that time, you could get them engraved for free.
And you get free music or something on that with that.
Oh,
So,
really?
Judy, when you
they give you some kind of service with it?
Yeah.
Like, oh, get into Apple TV Plus for 3 months. You just bought a tag.
So, Judy, when you lose something, does it give you like a Google map?
Well, it would if I searched for it, but I don't.
Yeah,
Okay,
if you
that's
go,
what you.
Jim, you've got
If-
an iPhone, right?
I do.
So you should have an app by default installed called Find My. And if you go into that Find My app, you'll see how this system kind of works. It'll give you a list of your Apple devices and allow you to pick it and see where it's physically located, or the last address that it was located at. And it'll be on a map that you could follow to that destination. Hey, Chester, I didn't see you pop in there. How you doing?
So,
Judy
Scott,
had
are you,
given me
Scott, are
this
you gonna-
great idea. It's just a week too late.
Scott, are you going to have any Apple products in your luggage anyway?
What?
No, everything's going to be carried on with me. All my equipment gets carried on with me. I
Well,
just
you
can't
can-
take that risk.
You can probably get them in Portland when you get there.
Yes. Hopefully the
I was
luggage
gonna
is there
say
when I get it.
Maybe the airport.
Oh, that's a good suggestion. I'll look at the airport. Maybe
But of course, your bags are already checked, so that's not going to help.
doesn't help, damn it.
Damn it.
If it was the same price though, then I probably would pick it up at the airport and
Right.
and risk the first 2 flights and have them for the last flight. I don't. Right now I'm going without that, so
Yeah.
I'm just risking it. It's going to Seattle. It's getting past to Portland. The only thing that's in my favor is we're planning on spending 3 days in Portland. So if they do lose the bags, they got 3 days to get them to me before we move on to Phoenix.
So is there a direct flight Portland to Hermosillo or something?
No, not at all. I've got family in Portland, and yeah, so we're making an intentional a stopover for a couple of days to spend time with my family, my father's family, my mother's family. And then in a couple of days after that, we'll head down to Phoenix, and we're making an intentional stop in Phoenix because there's work waiting for me to do there. So we'll spend a couple of days there, and then my wife and her sister will come up and pick us up and drive us back from Phoenix. Should be good. Well, I hope you
At least
guys
won't have to drive through the fires anyway.
Yeah. Right. I am going to drop in our chat here the link to our document of possible topics. If anyone's interested in some of the articles that I have brought to the table, they are in there. I also have to announce that I don't know what I'm doing for the 20th. I might have mentioned that in the email that got sent out. I think that I will be working in Phoenix and not be able to host the meeting. And I was actually hoping to find Cheryl here. I could ask her to take care of it for me. I'll reach out to her unless there's somebody else here that'd like to take over and make sure people get in the meeting. There isn't a lot of responsibility, but you do have to be owner of the meeting so that you can let people in. And then when the following week, before the following week, you just need to hand ownership back over to me so I can continue to run them in perpetuity. Hey,
That's
there's
probably good.
Jim.
Cheryl's probably a good one because she has Bill as backup too. You know, there's two of them there.
Yeah, I'll reach out to them after the meeting if they don't show up today and see if they'll be available to be responsible for that. Otherwise, I may send out a message just postponing so that we don't do a meeting on, unless somebody volunteers. I'll just postpone till the 27th. Too many things going on. Well, Jim just jumped on. I hope he's got a link to the document, but I'll send this link into our chat again, just in case he doesn't. And
I do not. Thank you.
Yeah. And all I was saying is I don't think I'm going to be available to host the meeting next week, and I'm hoping to get a hold of Bill and Cheryl, see if they'll take responsibility for letting people into the meeting. I don't know how available I'll even be because I'm going to be working in an office environment. I don't even know if I'll be able to. I'm hoping that in a perfect world, I get a hold of Cheryl. She runs the meeting, and I'm able to run around the office with a pair of Bluetooth headsets, listening to you guys talk, occasionally chiming in.
This show is not safe for office. So.
That's, well, depends on what office. I'll have you know this show goes on in my office all the time. So I've set up a lineup of news articles. Some of them are old because they were from last week, but I still thought they were interesting. Some of them are brand new, but most of them are funny or relatable. And just to start things out, really, well, kind of silly like. There is a police force in England. Let's start with that is accused of lying and creating phantom units on Waze. Have you guys heard about this? This is amazing. This is a great article about local police that figured out how to basically kind of hack their crowd. They've realized that if they reported themselves along roadways, if you're not familiar with Waves, maybe that's where we ought to start. Waves, I know some of you are. Waze is an app that you can download. In fact, we've talked about it before in Club, that does things like keeps track of construction and police speed traps, things of that nature. And it's all self-reported. So people using Waze will, for example, see a speed trap down the road and they'll press a button saying, hey, police speed trap right here. And that'll go out to everybody using Waze so that when the next person comes along, Waze is flagging, hey, slow down, there's a police officer coming up. And there's a number of different things. There's road conditions that can be flagged, and it's all in real time.
And
So-
if you need a detour, it'll map a detour for you.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of these features are getting integrated into Google Maps and Apple Maps, but very
Right.
specifically, this tracking law enforcement has been kind of left alone. And I haven't looked into Waze recently, but I seem to remember they were bought by Google and they let them operate separately as a separate app. I think they adopted some of their technology, but they still allow Waze to function as their own entity. Well, what this police force in Surrey discovered was that they could report themselves. And that's what they started doing on these roads where their town, they were having trouble with lots of speeding and people violating the law. They started reporting speed traps all along those roads. And so the people living there would get these notifications, there's police, and have to slow down because they were concerned about getting pulled over. Well, the police didn't exist. They're called ghost units or phantom units. The police cars don't actually exist. There's nobody out there. And now the town is upset, and they're accusing the police of lying to them, which, I mean, I guess technically is true. But if that's some kind of violation, I think is to be sorted out. I haven't followed up on this. I read this last week. Uh-oh. We've lost our link to the article, I see. Why don't we undo that last change? Somebody, it was probably me. There we go. And it's the second link down. I think I was just trying to move it around. So this is from August 30th. So I haven't done any follow-up on this to find out if they've done anything, gone any farther with this. But I thought that was really insightful of the police force and probably more a sign of what's going to happen in the future. And your community's going to have to decide whether that's appropriate or not. You have a road that people are violating. It reminds me of a suburb in New York a few years back was having an issue because Google Maps was working way too efficiently. And when the highway that paralleled their community would get a traffic jam, Google would search its side roads and find a faster route around and create this real-time detour. Well, it was happening with such frequency that it was driving this one community crazy. They were having highway traffic cutting through their neighborhood to get to the other section with such consistency that it was really disrupting their neighborhood. And Google had to come up with, first Google was hit with lawsuits from the township. And part of the settlement was they had to devise a system that allowed you to exclude your area from these mapping details, specifically under circumstances like this. And so they had to technically build this system, and then they had to politically build this system so that a township could label these streets as being private roads, unavailable for people that don't live in the area, and they would submit that to Google, and then Google would have a technical fix where they would tag those streets so that they wouldn't be included in their detouring system. And this reminds me very similar to that circumstance. I suspect that this is really a strange version of fuzzing, where the police force is adding imperfect data to the system to get the result that they need. They need people to slow down. And so they're creating these phantom units out there in this app. And I suspect that the fallout of this is great too, because I'm looking at the article right now as I'm talking, and I just happened to catch on my screen where it says here, the Surrey police claim the tactic works perfectly by encouraging drivers to slow down. So they have found a way to make their citizens slow down without patrolling, without handing out tickets. And now they're upset because it's just duping people. People are feel offended because they're being duped by the app that's supposed to be duping the police. I suspect what we're going to see in the future is a legitimate process where police are able to submit certain roadways, and there's going to be a sparkling of phantom police reports that are allowed to happen in certain communities. Seems like you wouldn't want to get too far into that kind of thinking if you're a developer, because you could kill your entire app. If it became known that you were allowing law enforcement to do things like this, why would your users even bother with the app in the first place? Anybody have any experience with Waze or these kinds of experiences? You got an opinion on this?
It does remind me a little bit about the CT closed circuit television that they have in England. Pretty well everywhere you go in England, you're under surveillance now, and we've been on the horns about that because we've had a couple of crime scenes that have been spanned over dozens of miles because Canada's not very closely populated. When you get a mass killer out on the loose, he's got to drive around looking for people.
In Canada, you catch your serial killers by checking gas receipts, I imagine.
Well, they've certainly been tightening up the RCMP's protocols on letting people know in a larger distance because it seems criminals are fond of driving around in neighborhoods these days.
Well, in Mendocino and Humboldt County on Highway 101, the Highway Patrol used to leave extra cars on pullouts, and there would be nobody in them, but the Highway Patrol car would be there to slow people down.
Oh gosh, Paul, you know what that reminds me of? When I first came to Mexico, they used to use like plywood cutouts of police cars, of federales, and they would stick them on the side of the road because at a distance, you would think it was a cop and you'd slow down. And as you're passing it, it's this two-dimensional cutout.
Well, they used to leave all those crosses along the side of the road too. You'd come to a curve and there'd be 16 crosses there. You'd slow down.
Yeah, well, that's yeah. That's
it.
Yeah, that's a motivational tool in itself, isn't it? They also, in San Carlos, I've seen it the most, is they'll hang police lights up at eye level as you're coming off the highway. You guys have seen this. At night, as you're rolling into San Carlos, off in the distance, you'll see these rollers going, and you'll slow down because you don't know whether it's a real police officer or not. Even though you know that that signal is out there on a street post, you'll still slow down just because you won't know for certain whether it's that sign or whether it's the police officer. It's interesting. And going back to Jim's point about the closed circuit TV, I would imagine the municipality of this this area. I don't know if it's a village or a big city or a county, but I would tread lightly as far as holding the police accountable. This is just my opinion. But because of the way England handles closed circuit TV, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they just outlawed using applications like Waze. And so their pursuit in holding the police accountable for duping the citizens could inadvertently lead to legislation that makes it illegal for you to be using this app in your car. It's definitely in England, it's illegal to use a TV without a license. It sure wouldn't surprise me at all that they would make these kinds of counter law enforcement apps illegal. I'm actually surprised they're not to begin with. It's they're definitely, when we had those radar detectors, we still do in the United States, there was definitely areas that had passed laws that made it illegal, and not federally, but different states had laws on what was considered appropriate for the speed. And I can just see this as the modern day version of checking speed radar. I wouldn't be surprised if they went ahead and just passed laws saying you can't use the device, which would be sad for everybody, because I mean there's good reasons to use an app like that. It's very helpful for people. It actually makes traffic less congested and more organized. And this seems like a great application for police officers that are concerned about specific areas. They could even have tendencies of putting phantom cars on certain routes that people become accustomed to, and then actually patrol them from time to time as it becomes less effective.
Yeah, it's a good fundraiser.
That's right. It just, that whole area, that Waze market is specifically for those kinds of decision making. And all of that seems like a really delicate balancing area where it could be helpful or it could be all taken away. Well, I thought that was a fun read, and it's pretty quick. And if you guys want more details, it's right there in the link. And what's happened? We've lost all our links now.
No, I can hear you.
No, I'm thinking about our links in our document. What is going on here? Where did all our article links go? So weird.
Well, I clicked on them and I got a little image, and that was all I got.
Well, they're all gone now, and I can't bring them back. I can't edit it back. That's strange. But it was you, Paul. You're the one that did it.
Yeah.
I see it in the history here. I'm going to restore this version. There we go. Now we got them back. Okay. So what else we got that I thought was interesting? Did you guys see the oxygen creating module? They have put together this device that they claim creates oxygen at the rate of 1 tree. I don't know if that's an adult tree or a baby tree, but the idea is that these are small devices that could be used for terraforming an area like Mars. I hope you're able to see my screen right now. But it's called Moxie, and they've tested it. And what is the ratio of how much they produce probably isn't that important, but they've got all that information in this article, how it works and how much it works. It's a little chemistry plant. There's a picture with a hand in it. You can see how small that module is.
Wow.
The only problem I have with this kind of stuff is that people that want to deny climate change look at this and go, see, we're going to be fine.
Oh, okay, let me point out something similar to that I'm familiar with, and it has to do with underground coal mining. And every coal miner carries on his belt a device that that chemically makes oxygen. In the case that they lose circulation and lose ventilation in the coal mine, they can actuate this chemical device that makes oxygen, and it'll last for 1 hour. The only problem with it is that it gets very hot. The chemical reaction is very hot, but it saves many lives in the event of lost ventilation. But that's maybe the similar that they're talking about here.
So you're saying that they wear a device that actually produces oxygen like what they're talking about here.
Yeah.
And this is in use right now.
It's been going on for 50 years.
That's wild.
They have to activate it.
Well, you carry it with you and hope you never have to use it. It's one of those things you carry on your belt, and hopefully you never have to use it. But you do practice using it, and I've done that in order to qualify to go underground.
Wow. That's pretty cool. I didn't even know such a thing existed. Well, this is one for the space program.
So the one for Mars probably consumes water and makes oxygen, and maybe hydrogen too.
How does it work? Carbon dioxide molecules are made up of one carbon atom and two oxygen atoms. Those bits are basically stuck together. But an instrument with MOXIE called the solid oxide electrolyzer can sort and harvest oxygen bits from those CO2 molecules.
Oh, okay.
So they're changing CO2 into oxygen. I guess they're splitting them away. The free-floating oxygen particles are combined into O2.
Well, see, in my vision of the future, cars will have a radiator that not only cools the engine, but converts carbon dioxide to oxygen and carbon.
It uses that excessive heat.
If I were king, that's what would happen.
Yeah.
Do you mean it cools the electric motor?
Yes, that's what it was. Well, that's like you can trick people by saying, does a VW Bug have a radiator? And they'll say no, but it does. It's got an oil radiator behind the fan there.
Oh. I still have all this AirTag stuff up. I should put that in. I'm realizing now I didn't ask if anybody has brought their own stories, questions, or problems to solve. Is there anybody out there that wanted to chime in with something?
Nope.
Well, I feel glad that I am amply prepared here. All right, Paul, I don't know what you're doing, but we keep losing links in this document.
Just look at all the morning shirts we have here. Scott and Jim. Black. The Queen died.
Say that again?
The Queen died, so we're all wearing black. Not all of us, but
Oh.
a larger percentage than normal.
I just restored this document again. I'm about to take somebody's privileges away. I need these links or I can't bring up the articles.
I only clicked on the top one after you fixed it.
Well, let's see. You should be able to click once and it will bring up a little thumbnail, and then you can click on the thumbnail and that'll bring up the article. Okay, let me do it on screen so you can see what I'm doing here. So here's the articles. Click.
I got thumbnails.
And you get the thumbnail, and then you click on the thumbnail, and that brings up the article.
Oh, okay.
So, well,
Well, maybe it might be better than a tree because a tree probably doesn't produce as much oxygen at night.
Oh, you think is that part of photosynthesis? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah? I just thought of photosynthesis as being its food, but I didn't know it was involved in the manufacturing of oxygen.
I have a story to tell.
Please, Chester, go ahead.
It has to do with tracing, and we're talking about cameras in England all over, everywhere.
Yes.
This is a documentary that has come out in the last few months, and I have a copy of it, but it's very interesting. And the name of it is 2000 Mules. And it is a company that developed the technology for tracing cell phones. And they have traced 2,000 persons that have been to one or more drop boxes, voting drop boxes. And in some cases, they even have video where these people have gone to these drop boxes with more than once and as many as 28 times a day to drop in votes for the last presidential election. Kind of interesting. It's produced by a guy named Sousa, who is, I think, Indian, and it's very interesting about what can happen to voting.
I thought that had been discredited.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. Also, somebody's music is playing in the background.
Well, that might be me.
Organ music.
It may have been you. It was
Gone.
kind of like New Orleans jazzy kind of music.
Yeah, a little bit of lounge acid jazz here. I forgot it was on. My wake up music. My wake up and get started music. Yeah, I thought that was all discredited at this point. I'm looking at an article on Rectors right now talking about it, but I'm not going to read the whole thing. Maybe I'll just drop it right here in our document and in our chat, because the question is does it actually show voter fraud or not, is the title of the article. And
what's the conclusion?
Well, I didn't get a chance to finish reading the conclusion, but I think
It's the last paragraph.
Oh, it's a good point.
Go to Snopes, fact checker, and they've got an article there about flawed analysis of location data in that documentary.
The way that they
Well,
used location data.
Also, back in 2014, Dinesh D'Souza pleads guilty in Manhattan in federal court to campaign finance fraud. So I don't really think that this guy is very reputable.
Doesn't have a lot of credibility.
Not a lot.
He screwed up his credibility. Well, that's always the unfortunate thing. I mean, even liars can be telling the truth. But why would you listen to them?
Why would you believe them?
Why would you believe them? They have a history of not telling the truth.
Exactly.
If anything, you ever had that experience where you're arguing a point and somebody comes along and argues your point, and they're the kind of person where you just wish they hadn't come along at all because they're hurting my point? You've just ruined all my credibility by showing up here and being on my side.
You don't like to be in a situation where you have to disagree with somebody who's agreeing with you.
That's right.
You talking about me, Scott?
No, I was talking about Liz Cheney.
Oh,
All right. Not I don't want to go political. I'm sorry. That was not my intention. What else we got going that's interesting? There was an announcement of USB 4, which will. Is somebody have a comment there that I missed? Oh, we're also on the clock. We're down to in less than 9 minutes. So very quickly, and then we'll switch over to another meeting. USB 4 has been announced, version 2. And if you're not looking at my screen because I'm not sharing it, it's you're going to look at 80 gigabits per second across the cable, which is insanely fast. That's twice what it is now for version 1. Version 1's 40 gigabits a second. You probably still haven't taken advantage of those speeds yet. But now they're doubling it to 80 gigabits a second. It's going to have the same USB-C connector. But one of the things, and forgive me, I read this last week, but if I remember right, this is really focusing on what is a certified cable and how to identify these cables. Right now in the market, we've talked about it before, the USB-C cable market is really convoluted. Very difficult to make sure you're getting the right USB-C cable for your right application. Because when you walk into the store, you've got to already know what you're going to use that cable for. Otherwise, it could be the wrong cable. And when I say that, I mean as far as data transfer speeds, as far as power transfer speed, whether you can do fast charging or you have to do slow charging, or whether there's charging in it at all. So when you've got a cable that's got a USB-C head on it, you don't know. You don't know if that cable's appropriate for just USB 3, USB 2, whether it's appropriate for Thunderbolt on the Macintosh, which is the new standard of USB 4. Version 1 is actually the Thunderbolt standard, but that cable in your hand may not be able to achieve 40 gigabits a second. And it may be. I'm sorry.
That's also true of HSBC. There are higher quality video cables for getting 4 on your television, 4K.
Are you referring to HDMI cables?
Yeah, HDMI cable. And if you don't have that, you can't get the really good quality.
Yeah. In fact, we talked about HDMI cables a few weeks ago, where they've got a new version standard that is optional, but is applicable to the old standard. So they've actually made the HDMI cable, the new standard is more convoluted than the old standard. It's very difficult to know whether you've got the right HDMI cable, especially if you start, when we start going into 8K, hopefully they'll have it sorted out by then. But right now, it's very difficult to know whether you've gotten an appropriate cable for 8K versus 4K. And then there's these controls that they want to shoot down that cable, like software controls this physical media, that it's very incongruent. The number HDMI 2.1 doesn't mean a whole lot. The industry has been given permission to use that on things that don't necessarily satisfy 2.1 because the 2.1 standard is classified as optional. Everything going forward is going to be 2.1 or higher. However, that brings along what we considered 2 before, because the 0.1 is an optional standard. If you're a little confused, it's because it's confusing and it's not consumer friendly and it needs to change. And that's what's happening with the USB standards. This USB standard 4, not only is it about doubling the speed, but it's about locking in those standards so that it's not confusing for consumers.
I have a question, Scott. If you got one that was a better quality one, would it still do the other jobs that required a lesser quality cable?
Well, this is where all the confusion comes from, because what is a better quality cable? Like a perfect USB-C cable would be I can fast charge through it. I can do fast data through it. It's running. It works for Thunderbolt as well as for USB 3. It's compatible with the previous USB standards. I'm sorry, I'm tongue twisting my words. That's the perfect cable. But that cable is a relatively expensive cable. Considerably more money than just some offhand USB-C cable. And so in the practical sense, you may have a device that has a USB-C connector but doesn't support fast charging. So that cable doesn't help you. Maybe you paid an extra $20 for that cable, but having it is meaningless to you when it comes to charging that device. You could have easily used a $5 cable.
I wonder if you will be able to daisy chain this the new one you're describing, like you can with the Apple.
You mean have multiple hubs that you would plug in?
Yeah, you can daisy chain the Apple, or you named it. I can't bring forward
The
word.
Thunderbolt?
Thunderbolt, yeah. You can daisy chain the Thunderbolt, hooking numerous devices to each other.
Yeah, I don't think it's daisy chaining is the term that you're wanting to use, Chester. Because what daisy chaining would be you plug one device into one thing and then you can plug another thing into that thing, and so you end up with this kind of device to device to device. And
That's exactly correct. What Thunderbolt does.
I don't believe that's the way Thunderbolt works. These high-speed connect now and it could be confused because what Thunderbolt does do is it eliminates the computer in the middle. And we can talk about this even more, but we're under a minute.
Under a minute.
So let's move over to the other meat. So I'm opening up the meat now. Look at all these people ready to go. And I'm shutting down the other meat. I'll see you guys there. Well, I truly don't know what just happened, but it looks like it's over with now and we're back functioning. And we were talking about Thunderbolt. Oh, there he is. Hello, hello. So we were talking about Thunderbolt, and I think that maybe daisy chaining is getting confused with this idea that Thunderbolt, you don't have to have a computer in the middle of things. Thunderbolt allows you to connect device to device. Even though it's seldom done, there are high professional devices that allow you to do things like move from a storage device, from a camera to a storage device without putting a computer in the middle of it. And Thunderbolt allows you to do that. But I am not familiar with Thunderbolt being a daisy chainable technology, though the Mac has definitely had daisy chainable technologies in the past. I don't believe Thunderbolt is one of them. And I am Googling it to prove myself wrong.
Sounds scientific.
Oh, and look at this. There's an article right here. Chester's right. It does say that you can daisy chain it. One device can plug into the end of a string of devices. Each device must be powered on. So you're absolutely right, Chester. This article at least says that you can, Thunderbolt 3 you can daisy chain. I have not run into any devices built to do this.
You'd need two
Ports.
Ports on. Yeah.
Yeah, like you would get You could imagine it like an external hard drive. They would have two Thunderbolt ports on it, and one would plug into whatever you're using it with, and the other one would be free to plug another device into. Thank you, Chester. I thought I was proving you wrong, and you were proving me wrong. It looks like it
And so
is
it goes.
a maximum of
does.
6 devices, 3 buses.
There's an organization called LACE, LACE, that makes Thunderbolt equipment, and you can plug in several hard drives with a daisy chain, probably a printer as well. But anyway, I don't use it anymore.
Well, you've got a good memory. Let me, I'm going to drop this link in our chat as well as put it on our document. If you want to understand more about Thunderbolt 3, this talks specifically about daisy chaining, something at which I sounded like I knew what I was talking about until I found this article. Until Chester was correcting me. Understanding Thunderbolt 3 daisy chaining. Cool. Well, I would assume that, I'm sorry, was there somebody want to chime in? No? Okay. I'm just beautifying the document with this. If you're curious what I'm doing, I'll put it on screen here. I'm just cleaning up this document and adding some pretty links to it so that this information is available to all of us very easily. And
I wonder if I have a question then. If I need more memory in a computer, then I should be able to somehow get a daisy chain, or from an iPad. Could I daisy chain it out to a bigger drive, like a bigger memory?
well, what you can do with an iPad right now is you can use that Thunderbolt port or Lightning connector. It's a Thunderbolt port and a Lightning connector. Thunderbolt and Lightning. You can use that to access a secondary storage device, like a hard drive, like a USB flash drive. Now that can be done, and you can. The latest versions of iOS have an application called Files that allow you to move files between the two devices. So you could have a storage device, like a USB storage device, that you plug in through your iPad connector, and you could use the Files app to move files from your iPad over to that device.
And Thunderbolt is very fast. You probably like that new USB 4 you're describing.
Yeah, well, Thunderbolt 3 is what USB 4 is based on. And then what we're talking about is version 2 of Thunderbolt, or no, I'm sorry, version 2 of USB 4. Again, USB 4 is Thunderbolt 3. Apple opened the standard and released it to the standards committee. So before it was proprietary to use Thunderbolt, you had to have Macintosh technology. They opened it up, and so they're calling Thunderbolt USB 4, and it's being adopted to all these manufacturers. That is a 40 gigabits per second technology, and it's all Apple's protocol, and they've opened that up for the whole industry.
It'd be interesting to see if you can daisy chain it.
Yeah, well, now, yeah, I believe that is daisy chain. I mean, because of the article that we found in your comments, I don't see why it wouldn't be, because it's supposed to be the exact same standard. Before USB-C on the PCs were based on USB 3.1. Isn't this all so clear? It's clear as mud.
Well, I think it's very interesting because of any problem I've had through the years is never having enough USB ports.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I've got hubs all over the place. I'm having to unplug something to plug something else in. Well, USB 3 and 3.1 became the standard on the PCs for fast speed USB. On the Macintosh, it was USB 3 through Paul, I'm sorry, I'm just getting some feedback from your end. I can see it popping up on the screen. I'm going to mute you real quick. On the Macintosh, they had these Thunderport connections that were faster than USB 3, but supported USB 3. So you could use the USB 3 or 3.1 standard on your Macintosh and access those kinds of devices. And through the same plug, you could access a Thunderbolt device and get even faster speeds. So it'd have to be a Thunderbolt device and a Macintosh computer or a Macintosh device, and you could achieve this 40 gigabits a second. If it was a USB 3 device, then you were limited to that speed through the same port. Now, what we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes is the USB 4 has a new version. So I'm still clear as mud. So that Thunderbolt standard at that point was what Apple gave the industry. They have 40 bits a second. They said, take this standard and we will call it USB 4. So Thunderbolt turns into USB 4, and that's available to the entire industry. You no longer need Macintosh devices. Go at 40 gigabits a second. And what this article is about is the next iteration of USB 4, which is version 2. And that goes twice as fast, uses the same plug size, that USB-C connector. And I believe a big portion of it is to really focus down on making it clear what kind of cable this is when you buy it. When you buy a USB 4 cable, it is going to achieve fast charging, fast data. It's going to be a USB-C on both ends. It's going to meet these certain requirements. It's going to have a certain distance that it can go. But it's going to be very clear instead of all these weird USB-C cables that we have on the market right now. When you buy a cable that says USB 4, it's going to be, USB 4 version 2, it's going to be this set of standards that you're expecting from it, which is missing right now in the USB-C cable market. You can easily... Oh, go ahead, Chester. I'm sorry.
Let me tickle your memory. I recently watched an old movie, and the main prop in the movie was a floppy.
Ah!
It took me way back.
That's great. Last night I introduced my daughter to Independence Day, which is a Roland Emmerich film, a sci-fi film about aliens attacking Earth. It was made back in the early to mid 90s. And we were chuckling because one of the plot points is infecting the... I'm spoiling the movie, okay? You've had 30 years to watch it. One of the plot points in the movie is that they infect the incoming alien armada with a computer virus. And both Emily and I were pointing at the TV screen, laughing and shouting because Jeff Goldblum, one of the stars, is on his old Macintosh computer, and he's uploading the virus to the network, to the alien network. And it has this great graphic going across the screen that says, uploading virus. like any self-respecting hacker would waste their time building a graphic to display on their screen to remind them of what they're doing. But of course, they had to tell the audience. Back in the early '90s, you had to remind the audience of what was going on. And so there's this great graphic with a progress bar saying, "We're uploading the virus now." Consequently, we had a lot of fun with that movie. It's never really a movie recommendation from me because it's not a great movie, but we had a lot of fun watching it. Chester, what were you watching that you had a floppy drive in? Do you remember? Oh, you're muted right now. We can't hear you. No, you're.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I watched the movie. I can't remember the name of the movie, but it just that's what I remember is the floppy.
The floppy disk. Yeah.
Yeah. Brought back old times.
It was really funny that the movie that that Independence Day really dates itself because there's cell phones used and they're the first of those feature phones or flip phones that were available back in the 90s. It was just everything was high tech for that movie at the time.
I'm so old that I had one of the original 8088s.
Oh yeah.
And souped it up.
Yeah. I think I've probably mentioned before, I had one of the old TRS-80 color computers. That's what I grew up with.
Symphony. And ran Symphony.
Symphony. I don't even remember that.
It was a 123.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, Lotus. It turned into Lotus.
Mm-hmm.
And then later was bought by IBM.
Right.
Amazing spreadsheet programs for its time. And they ran off a floppy disk.
I had a Commodore 64.
Oh, that's an awesome computer for the time. That'd be one to hang on to still. Just because nostalgia.
I do have it. I have it with a printer and a cassette drive.
That's
Great.
great.
Keep it for the museum.
There is a whole gray market of retro computers and game consoles. There's fanatics out there that love that stuff. Judy's
Somebody
out of
might
here.
want to play Pong.
No, Cheryl and Bill are in.
Oh, I've seen them pop in and out. Daryl, good morning. We were deep in conversation when you guys showed up before, and then we had to switch meets. And then I got disconnected from the internet for some reason.
Okay, so I got to tell my spreadsheet story.
Go.
I had an Apple IIe with 48 Screaming K, a black and white 9-inch black and white monitor, and 2 floppy drives and a Centronics 779 computer or printer. And I had VisiCalc. Anybody remember
that's right.
VisiCalc?
I remember
Sure.
VisiCalc. It turned into AppleWorks.
I guess. I believe I still have I don't have the computer or any of that stuff, but I do think I have the original manual that came with the Apple IIe. Anyway, that whole setup cost me $7,000 Canadian.
Oof.
Just say it. And the Centronics 779 was the only computer. It had only uppercase, no descenders, but you could vary the font size by there was a rheostat button at the back that you could turn, and it would make it smaller or bigger, and you could do it on one line. You could print the biggest to the smallest on the one line each time. You had to keep turning it, but you could do it. Anyway, that's my computer story and spreadsheet.
As you've been talking, I was fact checking myself, looking at VisiCalc's history, and it came out in 1979. And it has a footnote in here. It says when Lotus 123 was launched in 1983, VisiCalc sales ended almost overnight. That Lotus just basically put them out of business, and I was wrong about Apple buying them. Lotus bought them in 1985 and incorporated their technology into the Lotus spreadsheets. It was released on Apple II in '79, Apple III, TRS-80 Models 3, Apple II, TRS-80 Model 2, Commodore PET, the Atari 800. That all happened in 1980, and it
Yeah, I think
continued to be released on more computers until 83, and it was almost dead overnight when Lotus put out their product.
right. I had I think 1980 is when I bought the Apple IIe, and it came with a disc. The only game it had was Lemonade Stand, which was a huge hit, and a little address program, and that was it. All floppy disks. So I got teeth on that spreadsheet. No logical functions in it. It was just strictly mathematical functions. I believe I set one up so I had a logical an if then, but I can't even remember how I did it.
I want to share a little history too.
Go ahead, Pop.
All right. In 1982, I was just finishing up my term in the legislature, and I had a computer in my office, but I didn't have a clue how to use it. And Scott would come in and play around with it a little bit, but we never did get much out of it. And then we went back to Boston, and Scott was kind of driving us crazy. He kept saying, I want a computer. I want a computer. And he was 12 years old. We decided, well, maybe that'll keep him occupied. So he went to Radio Shack and bought a Tandy. And I got to tell you, this kid was almost a non-reader except for comic books. And he grabbed that manual and he studied that manual until by spring, I was taking a class on computers, my first experience. And the instructor said, if you really want to understand computers, talk to a young person, a teen. And so I asked the instructor about having Scott come in and talk to the folks, and he said, sure, that'd be great.
Terry, this is at Harvard.
Yeah, we're at Harvard.
We're taking.
So Sandy and his sister were kind of freaking out that he was going to go up and make a little presentation at Harvard, but he was totally unfazed. Tell him what you were doing, Sandy. You kept saying, "Are you ready? Are you ready?"
Well, yeah, I said, shouldn't we sit down and talk a little bit about what you want to say? Oh no, I got it. I'm ready. So it was pretty nerve-wracking, to say the least.
For everybody else, didn't bother Scott. And he sat there for 45 minutes and just dazzled everyone with his knowledge. He had actually figured out how to program on a tape recorder, and he had done it all by himself. I mean, he didn't even have anybody to talk to, so he had to learn it from the manual. So I always knew the kid was an alien, but I didn't realize how much so until we saw that take place.
That's a great story, Jerry.
Well, thank you, I think.
You were surprised your parents were concerned?
But does anyone remember using DOS in order to copy, in order to change programs or do anything? You had to go through the DOS formula.
I never figured DOS out.
I took one look at that and went right back to the blacksmith shop.
Some of the first consulting I ever did was writing batch menus for folks like yourselves that wanted to use a computer for very specific tasks, but had trouble with the command line. And so we would write up these menus that you could access and hit 1 to go to WordPerfect, hit 2 to go to Lotus, hit 3, I mean, whatever it might be. And that was all in DOS just to make things easier for people.
I remember our DOS machine at work. We each had a machine, and we were just learning anything about computers. One fellow answered the question, do you really want to format C, and he said, "Well, yes," and that was a big mistake.
Back in the day. Yeah, I
And,
remember those days. Like, yeah.
And the DOS had a command line, like I think it said "ready." Every time you enter something, it would say "ready." And so I went to my friend's machine and I changed that to "What do you want to do now, Ray?" And it said "ready," but when he entered the next thing, it said, "What do you want to do now, Ray?" And he just came unglued. He says, "How does it know my name?" But also, I guess I could have gotten in big trouble, but in WordPerfect, you could go to the dictionary and change perfectly good words into other words. And so
Sure.
I changed director into dictator. So if anybody wrote about the director of Fish and Game with that machine, it would say dictator. And I changed public to pubic. And a proofreader would never catch it. So
You're dangerous, Paul.
I only had it for like half a day, then I chickened out and changed it back.
Aw.
We are running out of time. Does anybody want to finish this off with some recommendations? Recommendations?
I just want to.
Oh,
I
yeah,
just
sure.
have a feedback. In the last month, I have used the Bird app, the Radar app, and the what's the other? Oh, Nextdoor. I found out a carpet cleaner who's going to come out to our house because of something I saw in Nextdoor. You guys have just been great with giving us apps this summer. So I just wanted to
Kudos.
kudos to the club for getting us going on some apps.
No, that's awesome. The three you mentioned right there, I have not gotten to use the Bird app is the Merlin, right? I've got it set up, but I haven't found an opportunity to use it yet. I did tell you my one frustration with it was when I was out in the middle of nowhere, I wasn't able to use it because I wasn't connected to a network. The My Radar app, which obviously you would need to be connected to a network to get that kind of information. I've used it a dozen times since somebody recommended it. We've had so much rain around here. Getting the bed and breakfast shut down and packed away has been a game of watching for when the rain stops to move, store, and clean things. And I've been using the My Radar to give me a good idea of when that cloud's going to stop passing over us. And what was the third one you mentioned, Cheryl? Merlin, Nextdoor. I haven't had a chance to use it. But, in the way things happen, the coincidence, I've heard so many references to this app since you guys mentioned it in the club. I wonder if I was just being blind to it, because now I hear it mentioned every other place. It's popping up in being recommended to me on my mobile devices, and I see it on TV being recommended. I just really caught me off guard how aware of it I am now since you've been recommending it at the club.
I had the same experience with WhatsApp. I had never heard of WhatsApp until one day at Computer Club, back when we were meeting at Tequila's. Maggie said, "Well, don't you have a cell phone? Here, let's put this on that." And next thing I knew, I was using WhatsApp. So, and it's my go-to communication with anybody in Mexico. And it's been great.
And WhatsApp is a recommended app anytime, all the time. Great resource to use. Have we got any other recommendations out there? I put one on the list. If you guys are Walking Dead's fans, maybe you're not. Maybe you're not because it's been this long-going arc that spans 9 years of stories. And people's character development goes all the way back to the beginning of this show. Maybe you're not interested in getting into something like that. But they've got a spin-off that's just recently come out called Tales of the Walking Dead. And this is a very true anthology series. every story is a unique, encompassed, episodic story of some new characters dealing with a situation that you've never seen before, all because of the zombie apocalypse, either happening at the moment, happening or about to happen, or months or years into it. Every one of these stories is its own little movie about dealing with the zombie apocalypse. And it's become a very interesting device. There's people like Anthony Edwards has had an episode. Parker Posey's had an episode. Her episode was really funny. She played a real estate person that was going through kind of a Groundhog Day plot line. That's the other thing, is that they've been able to instead mix up the genre a bit, so it's not this intense every day we're battling for our lives storyline, but they've been able to do comedy versions where they're funny stories, or dramatic versions. They're lighthearted. They don't have to fit in the timeline in a specific place. And so I found it really entertaining. I've enjoyed every one of the stories. And you can just pop into a story. Nothing is dependent on anything that's happened prior. And that's called Tales of the Walking Dead. Yeah, I think it's one of their better spin-offs. Chester, you're out of here. Let's say goodbye.
Saw one. I watched a program called Inventions of the 20th Century, Things That Changed the World. And I think it was on Netflix. And also I have an app called Seek, S-E-E-K. You take a picture of a plant and it tells you what plant it is and where it's from and stuff like that. So it's very much like Merlin.
That's okay. Seek for plants is what Merlin is for birds. Seek is for plants. Yeah. S-E-E-K?
Seek is a function of let's see, iNaturalist. Seek.
Sandy. This is
Inventions of the 20th Century. Is that a movie or a TV series?
A series. They do it in decade increments. So 1900 to 1910, and the 10s, the 20s, the 30s.
Oh, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, because it gives you a good reference of the progress of automobiles and flight and everything like that.
Paul, what was the name of that series?
I think it's Inventions of the 20th Century, but it's on Netflix.
Not seeing it.
No, well, if I watch it again, I'll write it down. I'll use the old archaic pencil and piece of paper.
There's one. No, that's a movie. Yeah, no, I'm not finding it. Inventions of the 20th Century. Mom, you got something you want to add?
Inventions that change the world is changing the world is part of it.
Oh, changing the world.
Inventions that change the world.
Change the world. Is this new, or you just stumbled across it?
I just stumbled across it. Anyway, I'll find out.
Go ahead, Mom.
All right, we're trying to remember what we've seen this last week and having a little trouble with it. I am curious if anyone watched Fall, F-A-L-L, besides Scott. Fall.
Don't know it.
You all look just too relaxed. Because whenever you say fall, I kind of go, no. It's a really good film. In terms of you're entertained the whole way, sort of. Anyway, so and then I don't know if we talked about this last week. We've been watching a movie called Tropo. Tropo. It's from Belgium.
It's freebie.
It's a free V. We'd never tried the free V app before off of, is it Radiosity? We found it?
I don't know where I found it.
It would either be
It's not
radiosity or the
Belgium, it's Australia.
Is that what? All right, sorry, I keep getting the wrong continents. Apparently, this one is Australia. I probably would know that if I was looking at it right now, but we've been watching a Belgian one. That's the one I can't remember the name of. Anyway,
I've been
Captain
watching.
Penny is
I've been
from
watching
Belgium.
House of Dragons on
Yes.
HBO, and they've only got four aired now, so you can catch up real quick.
And you recommend it. It's good if you're a.
Yeah. It's sort of like that other one, but it's interesting.
We're watching Rings of Power, and I decided the other day that maybe we needed a bigger TV screen, but it took Bill less than I got the words out. We need a bigger to say yes because of the scenery and the Rings of Power. You know, it's the Lord of the Rings series and that New Zealand stuff that they've created, all these temples and everything. And yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm just a little message. Jim Cunningham, 4 years ago today, you were in our yard and Maxine was covered in snow. And today, look, we have green grass. So the climate has changed.
Wow.
Yeah, we were
And,
racing across
from
Canada
4 years ago.
to stay ahead of that storm.
They were here and yeah. Linda took a picture out the window each morning they were here. The first morning it was green grass, but there was a storm coming. The next morning she took a picture of a skiff of snow. The next morning she took a picture of 6 inches of snow. So it was an interesting time.
So, Scott, have you had a chance to ask Cheryl about the class?
No, I haven't. Cheryl, I wanted to mention to you that I don't think that I'm going to be a reliable host next week because I'll be working in an office environment. So I was hoping that you'd be available to let people into meetings. And I think that the big difference this time would be that you'd have two. I don't think I've done this with you. Is giving you 2 meet codes to be the owner of. But I think that's what we'd have to do is just transfer the ownership over to you of both meets, and then you could let people in and host the meeting. I'm hoping I'll be in an environment where I can, at the very least, capture the meeting. And in a perfect world, I'm running around with a pair of Bluetooth headphones listening to you guys chiming in every once in a while. But I don't think I'm going to be able to really participate much.
Well, I think that next Tuesday is the first time in about a month that there's nothing on the calendar. And actually today there wasn't supposed to be either, but I had an opportunity to go and have an emergency eye thing done. So I believe that I can do that next Tuesday and we will talk before then.
Good. Let's do that. Okay, so the plan is to have a meeting. I just won't be in charge of it. So you'll have to listen to Cheryl. She'll be in charge. She'll be the disciplinarian of this group. You all have to behave yourselves.
Do you trust her to give it back to you?
What was
Scott,
that?
do you trust her to give it back to you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. though I've been threatened
Oh, believe me,
before.
Sandy, I send it back as soon as I can.
Like getting rid of old luggage. It's like, take it, get
He
it
mentioned
out of
zombies one more time.
What is it? Oh, where the crawdads sing. It's just come out.
Oh, I haven't watched it yet.
Well, I won't tell you anything about it then. But it's very good.
Well, we've read the book.
Yeah. I've only got the end yet to go, but I went ahead and watched the film. I liked it. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty sad.
You're getting a lot of attention right now.
Well, Sandy, James's wife, Carolyn, Jim's wife, Linda, and I all belong to the same book club. And we did that book last season. So I'm looking forward to seeing it because we loved the book and had lots of discussions about a lot of things from it. So
Yeah.
Cool.
Have we
Okay,
got
that's all I
anything
got.
else to add to our recommendations list for today's meeting? Because if not, otherwise we have gone much longer than normal, which is a lot easier to do when the computer's not blowing up in your.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, safe travels, Scott. It sounds like you're on the road this week.
Thank you. Yes, we will be leaving like midnight tonight, flying through Seattle, catching a plane to Portland, spending a couple of days there, and then on to Phoenix and spending a couple of days there before down to San Carlos. Yes, thank you. Thank you. You guys all stay safe and enjoy everything, and we'll see you next week, hopefully.
See you
Till
next
then,
week.
tech on.
Bye-bye.
You guys.
Heck on.
Tech on.
Am I doing it right?
You are if you're a Star Trek fan. Live long and prosper.
Right.
All right. See you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Well, that was it. That was the San Carlos Computer Club once again. And again, I'm Scott Stimson with International Computer Solutions. If you're looking for technical expertise, remotely available from wherever I happen to be, just get a hold of me, Scott at internationalcs.net. And if you like what we've done here, check out our website. I hope that by the end of this month, we'll be back publishing these as audio podcasts. But these meetings are always available through YouTube. And you can find links to those meetings on our website, scclub.org. Or just go to YouTube. Or just go to Twitter. Or just Google us, scclub.org. That's who we are. Until next week, everybody, tech on.